The Suez Canal is one of man's most impressive inventions. The 193-kilometre canal runs through Egypt and has been pivotal in dramatically shortening the shipping route between Europe and Asia because ships can travel through Africa instead of around it. In today's advanced world, it's almost hard to believe that humans completed the massive canal without modern technology. Construction of the Suez Canal began way back in 1859 and would take a whole 10 years to complete, eventually opening for international use in 1869. The original planning of the canal started in 1854. It began when the former French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps negotiated a deal with the Egyptian viceroy Said Pasha to start the Suez Canal Company. Initially, the British Empire were against the canal's construction due to political tension with France, who were in favour of the project. However, Britain came on board when they, like France, realised the canal would majorly shorten shipping to their Asian colonies. Although the idea seemed simple enough, building the massive canal was a problematic experience. Initially, the workers used to build the canal were Egyptian peasants who were given no other choice but to work. They dug the canal slowly with picks and baskets. The extremely hot climate of Egypt made the work extremely tough, which only slowed the workers down even more. Fortunately, in 1863, forced labour was outlawed and Europeans with steam-powered shovels and dredgers had to be brought in to finish the mammoth task. They were not helped by an outbreak of cholera in 1865. When the canal finally opened in 1869, it was deemed property of Egypt and France, the two countries with majority shares in the Suez Canal Company. In 1875 though, Egypt sold its shares to the British, giving them ownership of the canal. Despite the British and French ownership, the canal was always supposed to serve any international vessel who wished to use it, whether it was during peace or wartime. This strict rule was laid out in the 1888 Constantinople Convention. The convention was not always followed though. For example, both Germany and Israel were unable to use the canal at points in the 1940s. Britain and France would continue to own the canal until 1956, when Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalised the canal in a show of Egyptian strength. Although it sparked a brief war between Egypt, Britain, France and Israel, the canal's ultimate control would remain with Egypt. Today, it is operated through the Suez Canal Authority and is open for use from all countries. Apart from a brief closure of the canal between 1967 and 1975, when sunken ships from the Six-Day War blocked the narrow entrance, the canal has always been readily available to shorten the trade route from Europe to Asia. In fact, shortening that very shipping route was the only reason the canal was conceptualised in the first place. Its very creation has helped link the markets of Europe and Asia closer than the humans of 1854 could have ever believed. And without the canal to revolutionise world shipping, the world that we know today would be hugely different.
Many people get confused between the two royal Marys alive during the 1500s. Both are historically famous and just about household names, but let's delve a little bit deeper into who these two characters really were. Mary I of England, also known as Bloody Mary, became Queen of England following Edward VI's death in 1553. She is officially known as the first Queen Regent of England, meaning she had the same power as a king. It took a bit of fighting to make this happen, as Edward tried to change the succession due to religious differences. Mary was the first daughter of the famous King Henry VIII, who had 6 wives in his 48 years of living. Mary's mother was the first of Henry's wives, a Roman Catholic called Catherine of Aragon. Mary shared her mother's zealous beliefs and tried to revert England back to Catholicism in her 5-year reign. This resulted in the burnings of over 280 Protestants, leading to the famous nickname Bloody Mary. In 1558, she became the last ruler to oversee loss of English territory in France, when the French captured the port town of Calais, known as the brightest jewel in the English crown. She eventually died of cancer, to the joy of Protestants, and double joy, she failed to have any children. The latter was especially pleasing, as Mary's half-sister, Elizabeth, reintroduced Protestantism to England for good. Mary, Queen of Scots, was a completely different person to both Mary I and Elizabeth. However, she was related to the royal affairs of England during this time, as well as having blood relations to the royal Tudor family. This is because Mary Queen of Scots was a distant relation to both Bloody Mary and Queen Elizabeth through their respective grandmothers. In the end, this meant Mary Queen of Scots was an important factor in the succession of England. Mary Queen of Scots was the only surviving child of the King of Scotland at the time, James V. Mary became Queen of Scotland at the age of just 6 days. She spent her youth in France betrothed to the prince over there. They eventually married, and she shared the throne of Scotland and France with her husband until he died a year later. She became rather unpopular when she married her cousin, Lord Dunley. It meant both king and queen were Catholics in a Protestant nation, and incest wasn't well regarded back then either. He was murdered 2 years later, and then she married the person commonly thought today to have murdered him. This angered both the Lords of Scotland and Queen Elizabeth in neighbouring England. Mary was then forced to abdicate to a 1-year-old son, whom she never saw again. She fled to England, hoping for support and protection from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth. Bad luck continued, however, when Elizabeth instead put her under house arrest for 18 years. Admittedly, this seems a bit random, doesn't it? Well, it's because Queen Elizabeth saw Mary as a threat. Mary had a legitimate claim to the throne, and her strong connection to Catholicism made her the figurehead of Catholic rebellion in a Protestant England. After 18 years of imprisonment, Mary understandably got impatient and supposedly joined a plot to assassinate Queen Elizabeth. The plot was discovered by Queen Elizabeth's spymaster, and through a confusing sequence of events, the decision was made to execute Mary, the former Queen of Scots. Mary's death is famous for its brutality. Reportedly, the axeman's first blow missed her neck completely and ended up in her skull. The ensuing cuts failed to fully behead her, and it actually took 3 full strokes to behead her completely. Mary seemed to be followed by bad luck even as she died. To this very day, the history surrounding Bloody Mary and Mary Queen of Scots is a highly debated topic. Both Marys remain as reminders of dark patches in British history.